Okay, so for this video, we'll be discussing about C functions. C functions. C functions are a block of code that performs a specific task. And the purpose of using C functions is to divide complex problem into small components that makes a program easy to understand and use. A function is a group of statements that together perform a task. And every C program has at least one function, which is the main function. And all the most trivial programs can define additional functions. Type of functions. So first we have the standard library functions. So the standard library functions are built-in functions in C programming to handle tasks such as mathematical computations, I/O processing or input-output processing, string handling, and more. These functions are defined in the header file. The printf is a standard library function to send formatted output to the screen. This function is defined in the standard IO or stdio.h header file. Other numerous library functions defined in the standard IO.h header file are scanf, fprintf, getchar, and more. User-defined functions. As mentioned earlier, C language allows programmer to define functions. Such functions created by the user are called user-defined functions. Depending upon the complexity and requirement of the program, you can create as many user-defined functions as you want. What are the advantages of user-defined function? So the program will be easier to understand if we create functions. Because this will be, the reason for this is, we'll be dividing the programs into smaller chunk of codes, and it will make the program more understandable. The reusable codes that then can be used in other programs. So that should be done. A large program can be divided into smaller modules, just like what I've said a while ago. Hence, a large project can be divided among many programmers also. How do we define a function? The general form of a function definition in C is shown here. So we have the return type, followed by the function name, and then open close. So we have the return type. So here's the return type. We have the return type, followed by the name of the function, and then the parameter list. Then open curly brace. So we have the function block, and then at the middle will be the body of the function. So what are the parts? These are the return type. So this is the first part here. Is a function may return a value. The return type is a data type of the value the function returns. Let's say, for example, the function returns an integer value, so you should place there int. If the function returns a character, you should use character. If the function does not return any value, then you should use void. So maybe we'll be giving examples of that in other videos. Function name. So after the return type will be the function name. So this is the actual name of the function. So sorry for the misspelling here. Parameters. A parameter is like a placeholder, or these are like variables. When a function is invoked, you pass value to the parameter. We can also consider this as inputs to the function. So these are the inputs to the function. The function body contains a collection of statements that define what the function does. So here's an example. Given below is a source code for a function called max or maximum. This function takes two parameters, num1 and num2, and returns the maximum value between the two. So we have integer max int num1 int num2, then integer the result. So if num1 is higher than num2, then the result should be equal to num1 because this function is trying to return the highest or the higher value. So if num1 is higher than num2, then the result is equal to num1. Otherwise, or else, the result is equal to num2. And then the function now return the value of result. So which actually contains the higher value or the max value. Declaring a function. A function declaration tells the compiler about the function name and how to call the function. The actual body of the function can be defined separately. A function declaration has the following parts: return type, followed by the function name and param list. So it's just like an empty function. Although for other programmers, they don't already declare the function, but what they do is to write the function itself instead of just declaring the function. So it depends on what is your approach. If your approach is some sort of a top-down approach, then most probably you'll be declaring functions. But if your approach is the bottom-up approach, then most probably you will not be declaring functions anymore, but you will be defining the functions on the upper part of the program or the main program. Now, how do we call a function? To use a function, you will have to call that function to perform the defined task. The program control is transferred to the called function, and a called function performs a defined task, and when its return statement is executed, or when its function ending closing brace is reached, it returns the program control back to the main program or to the calling program. To call a function, you simply need to pass the required parameters along with the function name. So that ends my PowerPoint presentation, but I'll be showing you the actual source code of using the function. So I have already here my source code. So here you notice I have here my function declaration. So here's my main program, and before my main program I have now my function declaration. So it says here integer max int num1 int num2. So just like defining the function, but it's empty. We have no block of code. And then where did we place our function? So we place it at the bottom of the source code or the program. So we have here our definition of the max function. So integer max int num1 int num2. Then we declare the local variable int result. Then we try to test these two values, so that if num1 is higher than num2, these are our parameters. As I've said last time, the parameters are also like inputs. So if the value of num1 is higher than num2, then the result should be equal to num1, because again, this function is trying to return the higher value or the highest value. So result is equal to num1. If not, so else, the result is equal to num2. And then we just return the value of the result. Now, so here we declare, and then here we actually define the actual function at the bottom of the main function. Then after that, we have here our main function. So what did we do with our main function? We first declared three variables. A is equal to 100, integer A, integer B is equal to 200, then integer ret or the return value. And then here is an example of calling a function. So return is equal to max A, B. So once this function is called, it will pass control to this A. The value of A will be passed to num1. So the value only will be passed, and then the value B will be passed to num2. So in this case, num1 will be equal to 100 and num2 will be equal to 200, because we already have the values here. So is 100 higher than 200? No. So it will go to the else block. The result is equal to num2. So result is equal to 200. Then return result that returns 200. So 200 will now be the value of ret. And then print max value is %d /n ret. and ret contains the value 200. So the output should be 200. Let's try to run the program. Hopefully there are no more errors here. So the maximum value is 200. That's the output of the program. Let's check. Let's say that this one now is 500, integer A, and we run the program. So you notice it now returns 500. So what if they have the same value? It doesn't matter. It will also return the higher value, but it's the same. Whether it returns A or B, it doesn't matter. So let's try to execute. So maximum value is 200. So let's again go back here to have a recap of what we have done. So here we have declared our function, and what is in here, in is the return type, max is the name of the function, and inside this parentheses are the parameters. We have num1 and num2, both are integers. And then at the bottom of the source code, at the bottom of the main function, we define the function itself. So integer max, again, in is the return data type, max is the name of the function, and we have here the two parameters. The two parameters, we supply these parameters with values, and here we declare the local variable result, and then again the result. So this will return the result, the higher value. And then so this is where we define the function. Here we have the main program. We declared two variables here. So let's place it back to its original value. And then here is an example of calling a function. So the function returns, the return value will be placed here, will be stored here, and then we define our output. Okay, thank you very much for viewing this video.